You know what's terrifying? When the stories we tell to scare each other actually happen. Tonight, I'm diving into 10 Halloween legends that everyone dismissed as folklore. Urban myths. Campfire tales meant to freak out kids. Except here's the problem, they're real. And I'm not talking about, oh, there's a grain of truth buried somewhere. No. I mean these stories, these exact, bone-chilling details, actually occurred. Documented. Verified. Undeniable. From haunted objects that ruined lives, to creatures people swore were fantasy, until they found the bodies. We're peeling back the costume on Halloween itself and looking at the horrifying truth underneath. So if you thought you were safe because it's just a myth, think again. Because by the end of this video, you'll never look at Halloween the same way. Let's start with something that should have stayed buried. Everyone's heard this one, right? The paranoid parent's worst nightmare. Razor blades in apples. Poisoned chocolate bars. Strangers handing out death disguised as fun-sized Snickers. And for decades, experts said it was overblown. A moral panic. Statistically irrelevant. But here's where it gets dark. 1974, Texas. A man named Ronald Clark O'Brien handed out pixie sticks laced with cyanide to 5 children, including his own 8-year-old son, Timothy. Timothy died that night. O'Brien did it for insurance money. He wanted to murder his own child and hide it in the chaos of Halloween. He became known as the Candy Man, and he was executed in 1984. But the myth? It started as a myth because of him. One real case created a nationwide fear that still lingers today. So yeah. It happened. And every time you check your kid's candy, you're remembering Timothy O'Brien. Now let's talk about something even older. Stand in front of a mirror. Say her name 3 times. She appears. Bloody Mary. The ghost in the glass. The woman scorned, murdered, or witch-burned, depending on who tells it. But here's the truth, there was a Bloody Mary. Her real name was Mary I of England, and she earned that nickname by burning over 280 Protestants alive during her reign in the 1550s. She wanted to restore Catholicism, and anyone who resisted, burned at the stake. Her face reportedly became gaunt and pale from illness. Her eyes, hollow. Witnesses described her as ghost-like even while alive. And here's the kicker, people genuinely believed she haunted mirrors after her death because mirrors were seen as portals to the soul. So when kids play that game today, they're summoning the memory of a queen who killed hundreds and died alone, paranoid, and hated. Not so fun anymore, is it? This one sounds silly until you learn the history. During the Middle Ages, black cats were believed to be witches in disguise. The church declared them agents of Satan. And during the witch hunts, both the witches and their cats were burned alive. But it gets worse. In the 1300s, Pope Gregory IX issued a decree basically condemning black cats. The result? Mass extermination of cats across Europe. And guess what thrived without cats around? Rats. Rats carrying the bubonic plague. The Black Death killed over 25 million people in Europe. Some historians argue the cat genocide directly contributed to the pandemic spread. So yeah. Black cats didn't bring bad luck, killing them created it. Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow made this story famous. A headless rider chasing people through the woods, hurling his severed head like a weapon. Sounds like fiction, right? Not exactly. The story is based on real Hessian soldiers, German mercenaries fighting for the British during the American Revolution. Many were killed in brutal, close combat battles. Decapitations weren't uncommon. In Sleepy Hollow, New York, there are actual graves of Hessian soldiers. And locals reported sightings of a mysterious rider on horseback in the late 1700s, right after the war. Irving didn't invent the headless horseman. He just wrote down what people were already whispering about. And even today, people in that area report strange occurrences near those old burial sites. Horses spooked for no reason. Shadows moving through trees. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe some soldiers never left the battlefield. Okay, hear me out. Vampires as we know them, Dracula, fangs, capes, are fiction. But the myth came from somewhere real. And it's worse than you think. In the 1700s, Eastern Europe experienced what historians call vampire panics. People were dying of tuberculosis, which caused pale skin, blood around the mouth, and a wasting away appearance. But here's the horrifying part: when they exhumed bodies to check for vampirism, they saw things that seemed supernatural. Bloated corpses. Blood in the mouth. Nails and hair that appeared to have grown after death. They didn't understand decomposition. So they drove stakes through hearts, decapitated bodies, and burned remains to kill the vampire. Except those people were never vampires. They were just dead. And in some cases, they weren't even fully dead yet. There are documented cases of people being buried alive due to catalepsy or comas. Imagine waking up in a coffin, only to be exhumed and staked because your neighbors thought you were undead. That's the real vampire myth. Not Dracula. Just human ignorance and unimaginable terror. Everyone treats Ouija boards like a joke. A toy. A party trick. But there's a reason they freak people out. In 1891, the Ouija board was patented as a talking board, marketed as a way to communicate with the dead. And sure, it's sold in toy stores now. But the history? Way darker. Numerous families have reported real hauntings after using them. Not just the planchette moved stuff. I'm talking full-on psychological breakdowns, violent outbursts, and unexplained phenomena. One of the most famous cases involved a woman named Pearl Curran in 1913. She used a Ouija board and claimed to channel a spirit named Patience Worth, who dictated entire novels, poems, and historical details Pearl couldn't have known. Skeptics tried to debunk it. They couldn't. Whether you believe in spirits or not, something was happening. And the board was the trigger. So maybe, just maybe, some toys shouldn't be played with. You've heard this one. A driver picks up a hitchhiker on a dark road. They chat. Then suddenly, the passenger vanishes. Later, the driver finds out the hitchhiker died years ago on that same road. Urban legend, right? Except there are dozens of documented cases matching this exact story. Different locations. Different decades. Same eerie details. One of the most famous is Resurrection Mary in Chicago. Since the 1930s, drivers have reported picking up a young woman in a white dress near Resurrection Cemetery. She asks for a ride, then disappears before reaching her destination. Witnesses have given consistent descriptions. White dress. Blonde hair. Cold to the touch. And here's the kicker, there was a girl named Mary who died in a car accident near that cemetery in the 1930s. Coincidence? Maybe. But when the same ghost is reported for 90 years, that's not just a legend anymore. This one sounds ridiculous until you hear the facts. In Fairfax County, Virginia, there's a railroad overpass known as the Bunny Man Bridge. Legend says a man in a bunny costume attacks people with an axe. Sounds like a bad horror movie. But in 1970, it actually happened. A couple was sitting in their car when a man in a white bunny suit smashed their window and screamed at them to leave. Witnesses reported him. Police investigated. It made the news. Then, 2 weeks later, a security guard saw the same man, bunny suit and all, chopping at a porch with a hatchet. They never caught him. To this day, no one knows who he was or why he did it. But every Halloween, people dare each other to visit that bridge. And sometimes, they see him again. Creepy clowns have been a Halloween staple forever. But in 2016, something insane happened. Reports of people dressed as clowns lurking near schools, trying to lure children into the woods, started popping up nationwide. At first, people thought it was a hoax. Then arrests started happening. Over a dozen people were detained for clown-related threats or actual attempts. Some were pranks. But others? Genuine attempts to harm or abduct kids. The killer clown myth became real in real time. Schools went on lockdown. Communities panicked. And it all traced back to one truth: people are terrifying. The costume just makes it worse. Okay, obviously witches with magic powers aren't real. But the people accused during the Salem witch trials, many of them were practicing folk magic, herbalism, and midwifery, things that were seen as witchcraft. And here's the disturbing part: some recent studies suggest the possessed behavior that started the trials might have been caused by ergot poisoning, a fungus that grows on rye and causes hallucinations, convulsions, and violent outbreaks. So the witches weren't casting spells. The accusers were literally tripping on moldy bread. But 20 people still died. Hanged. Crushed. Tortured. The myth wasn't real. But the horror was. So there you have it. 10 Halloween myths that weren't myths at all. Real murders. Real hauntings. Real terror hiding behind the mask of folklore. And here's the scariest part: we keep telling these stories. We keep dressing up as ghosts and vampires and killers. We celebrate the very things that once destroyed lives. Maybe that's the real curse of Halloween. We can't let go of the darkness. It's part of us now. So the next time you light a jack-o'-lantern, hand out candy, or tell a ghost story, remember: some of those stories are true. And some of those ghosts, they're still here. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, drop a comment with your favorite myth, or one I missed. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into the things that go bump in the night. And whatever you do this Halloween, stay safe out there. Because you never know what's waiting in the dark.